Welcome back to the channel. So the summer tours are upon us. I think we've got some really interesting test series coming up over the next few weeks. And in this video, I'm going to preview them. So welcome back. I'm going to be speaking about the All Blacks against England, South Africa against Ireland, Australia against Wales, and Scotland's tour to, well, they do Canada, the USA, Chile, and Uruguay. 4 very different tours, but they're all quite interesting for varying reasons. So I'll go into them, I'll go through each of them, and you can have your say in the comment section. Whichever team you support, whichever series you're looking forward to the most, that is where you can give your view. Whilst you're here as well, I'd love it if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me start off though with the All Blacks against England, because I'm so fascinated to see both where New Zealand are, and I'll come on to them in a sec, and in particular where England are. Given that their final 2 matches of the Six Nations was a win against Ireland. I was at Twickenham for that game and it was just a brilliant occasion. The atmosphere was exceptional and it was the best England performance since the World Cup semi-final in 2019. It had been that long, I think, since England had given that sort of a performance and got that sort of a result. And then the final game of the Six Nations away to France, a match that they'll feel they maybe could have, probably should have won. It seems like they had turned a corner and went on an upward curve. And then they've headed to New Zealand, one of the toughest places in the world to tour. England very rarely win there. So to see where is this England team in its development, I think is going to be really interesting. And in particular part of that, and because I'm going through each test series, I'm not going to get into the minute details of every team and team selection and position, but I think one thing in particular for England is how does Marcus Smith go at 10, at fly half? He's been part of the England setup for a little while now. He's always had Owen Farrell there, he's always had George Ford there. This is the first real time, with the exceptions of a Lions year, when I think he maybe played against the USA or the Barbarians. England had a few games there. It's his opportunity to lead this team, to grab the 10 jersey by the scruff of the neck and try and make it his own. George Ford, I think, was excellent in the Six Nations and I think will still be part of the setup at some point going forward when he's back from injury. But this is a real opportunity for Marcus Smith. I think he's absolutely capable of being that guy, the kind of what George Ford is, who leads meetings, who is running the attack. It's a really exciting chance for him. So to see how he gets on, I'll be keeping a keen eye on. And then I mentioned it, but it's a new era for the All Blacks. I know people in New Zealand are going to be really exciting. Scott Robertson coming in with a glittering CV, did brilliant work with the Crusaders. A guy, I think, who clearly is a great players coach. I think players love playing for him. I mean, how many coaches do you see breakdancing when you win finals? But it also means there's an element of uncertainty of what do they look like? How do they play? Do they hit the ground running? So what this New Zealand team is going to be for the next 4 years or however long under Robertson starts against England over the next couple of weekends. I think that is, pretty tantalising really. I think for both of those teams, that series is set up really well. Getting on South Africa and Ireland. On paper, this is going to be such a good series. The world champions against the team who've been the best team in the Northern Hemisphere for a little while now, really. A team a lot of people felt missed an opportunity at the World Cup, who at the Six Nations earlier this year were saying they're the best team in the world and all that sort of chat. I just wonder how big a concern it is for Ireland not having Jamison Gibson-Park and the uncertainty in the halfbacks for Ireland. Now, generally speaking, the Irish systems under Andy Farrell have always dealt with the challenges they've faced with. I think in particular the lack of Johnny Sexton in the Six Nations, for the most part, they still look really good. Their attack still looks slick. But Gibson Park is key for them. Absolutely essential. And then I think there is uncertainty about who plays fly half. And Ireland fans watching this, who does play fly half? Who should start at 10 for Ireland against the Springboks? As for South Africa, the big thing for me really when I look at this South African team, back-to-back World Cup champions, but can they capitalise on this World Cup in a way which they weren't able to in 2020, following winning the World Cup in 2019? Obviously COVID happened, they got shut down, the Lions series was behind closed doors, they never really got, I think, to kick on. I know I've heard players who've been part of that team speak about that since. A number of them have said they weren't able to capitalise and kick on in the way that they hoped. I think this South African team can, and I think they will. And I think when you look at the team that Erasmus has selected, the strength in depth, the quality, just the clear identity and structure and stability of it, despite the fact there being some experienced players in there, they just feel really well set up for this series, I think. And I wonder, I hope it isn't this way because I want to see a competitive series. I wonder if it will end up being a couple of, not easy, I don't think it's ever going to be easy against Ireland, but fairly comfortable wins for the Boks. But who knows with this Ireland team? They're incredibly good. They are made of stern stuff, and we'll see how they get on. But that's probably my fear at the moment. Let's get on to Australia-Wales, because this is fascinating. I don't think it's as blockbuster as South Africa-Ireland, obviously, even All Blacks against England as well. But it's the perfect time almost for these two teams to play one another. And I'm really confident that Joe Schmidt is going to have an impact with the Wallabies. I think he did a great job with Ireland. It got a bit stale in the end. He did a brilliant job with Leinster. His coaching track record and his attention to detail we've seen for a long, long time throughout his career. I think he will have a big impact on this Wallabies team, despite the fact that Australia were dismal last year. I mean, utterly, utterly awful under Eddie Jones. A terrible World Cup, the worst they've ever seen. I remember being sat in that game in Monaco when Wales absolutely hammered them, ran away with the game in the second half, and was just found it quite sad, frankly, of the state of Australian rugby. And don't forget, this is the start of a big few years for them. They've got a home Lions tour, which is crucial. I think all the test matches are sold out. There's going to be big, big travelling support from the Lions, but you hope can galvanise something in the country more broadly. We also need them to be more competitive in that series than many people suspect they might be. That starts now. And also they've got a home World Cup on the horizon as well. They need a good home World Cup. Again, they need it for the sport in the country, and this is the first building block on the road to that. So what Australia look like is really interesting. I think Schmidt will have a really good impact. But what about Wales? Because I think it'll be a well-matched series. Because of where Australia are, a new era and all that sort of thing, Wales are in a tough spot themselves. Wooden spoon in the Six Nations. All sorts of issues, injuries, players missing, general issues around quality and experience in this squad. What's success, I suppose, for Wales? That's the question. Do Wales need to win a test match on this tour? Like, if they lose them both, do Wales fans accept that because it is part of a broader process, a longer process of rebuilding this team? I just wonder whether we need to see Wales win a test from a Welsh perspective. I think maybe there's a bit of pressure on them to do that. But then also maybe not, because I think about it, I think if they do lose both test matches, I don't necessarily see Gatland losing his job. I don't think it's quite at that sort of stage of things. But they're in a bad way, Wales. A bad way. And at the moment, you struggle to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think it will come, but I think it will take years, because I think it is about this group of players that are coming through now. The Cam Winnets, the Alex Manns, all those sorts of guys that we've seen come into the team fairly recently, gaining more experience. It is going to take time. But I do think it makes it a really intriguing series. Let's finish off with Scotland. As I say, they've got Canada, the USA, Chile and Uruguay. A tour that will naturally go under the radar a lot more, unless you're a Scotland fan, than those other tours I mentioned. It's less glamorous. I think it's come at a good time for Scotland though, don't you? Scotland team who, where are they? Undeniable progress under Gregor Townsend. They disappointed at the World Cup, but they were in a brutal draw against the eventual winners and Ireland. No one really expected them to get through it. But they're also a team that, despite all their progress, they didn't make an impact upon that World Cup group in the way that they would have wanted. They've never been able to get themselves to the latter stages of the Six Nations and be in a realistic position where they could win it. So where are they under Gregor Townsend? I think it comes at a good time for them to rest and rotate. We've seen that with some of the players that are left at home, the likes of Finn Russell, for example. They can get new blood into this team and they can start building towards the future and try and build depth. I suppose that's the big challenge for Scotland. I think Gregor Townsend has done a good job of giving them a good starting 15 when all are healthy, a pretty good match day 23 that we've seen go to toe with the best teams in the world. They came close to beating the All Blacks a few years ago. They have got over the hump of not being able to beat England. They've got the much better of that rivalry in the Six Nations. They've had some really, really good results without necessarily kicking on and being a top team in the world. I think that is always going to be a huge challenge for Scotland because of the player pool, because of the resources. I think Townsend has done a good job, but I just feel like Scotland can get more out of this tour than they probably could touring any of those other countries that I mentioned at this moment in time. It's almost a bit of a reset. Bringing players through, we will see plenty of debutants, we will see the team rotated, and also a 4-match tour means they've got a fair old while, haven't they? It's a fair old time for them to try combinations and have guys in camp who can get used to an international environment. So 4 tours, all really, really interesting for varying different reasons. What are you looking forward to the most? I suppose from my point of view as an England fan, I'm naturally looking forward to that England series. But the one I'm looking forward to the most, just with a rugby hat on, is South Africa against Ireland. I think it'll be excellent. And I must admit, Australia-Wales. Australia-Wales really, really fascinates me. Not so much because of the quality of those two teams at the moment, but just because of where they are at the moment. So let me know. I look forward to reading your comments. Don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are almost in test week. I'll see you in the next one.